Hello there, this is Drax Games, and quite frankly, I'm kind of upset because I actually made a video for last week, so I'm going to be making a video each week for a recap. It's going to be called Recap Videos, and then here and there I might actually create videos on like explaining stuff about the game and all that, but I'm just going to be, each week is going to be a recap of what happened through the week of developing these games and all that, and if anything kind of like somewhat has to do with the games or my creating of it. So, before I start off with any big news, let me first go over something funny that happened. Because this is kind of a funny. It's funny to me in a sense because I really find what's funny is whenever like I put in so much work and it was all just like for pointless, which actually is going to be the more dramatic part as well because it actually has a big hold on the situation with the game. But still, first, let's go over with the first step. The first thing that, no, not let's say first step. The funny thing that happened recently. I'm at work because during my downtime, whenever I get breaks, which depends on how long hours, which we now try to make us take breaks at least a break every 6 hours. Like if you have 6 hours, you have to take a break, which I do anyway because I'm hungry. So I'm like, I'll take advantage of this. I'll just take a break. I also take it near a time where it's not too busy, so that way I can actually enjoy the break, and also when I'm hungry. So I'll just take a break, and not do anything. I'm just gonna go ahead and practice my drawing and all that, and get better at that. And what was funny was I've been over like 2 or 3 days. I've worked on getting better at drawing, but also I've been drawing the positions for what I was gonna do for the game. And I was for my fighter first. I want to first get to my fighter because what I was working on was first. I just go through how I do this. I do first. I'm really good at drawing stickmen. I've always been great at drawing stickmen because I understand the basics of what the body needs to at least make it look humanoid-ish. Then I can go to the next step, which I create it into shapes like circles for the uh, points that bend, and even I do that for the hip as well, so that way I give good bends. I can like good way to measure out what I need for the joints separately and all that. So even at the uh, for the crotch area and all that, I do a circle, like basically like this to circle, and then the legs go from the circle. That makes it really easy. As well as shoulders, basically square and then a shoulder, circle for the shoulders. But it's kind of in the square part, so it makes it like a kind of like a half circle. It's perfect for me because I make squares. Also, the squares help me really find out what's like a good angle because even though we're not quite like that, but like I see like this. If I have it like an angle like this, I go flat right here, and then like this. Hold up, it'd be like a angle like this for the back, or like this, yeah, for the angle. I'm not really showing it correctly through this, but let's just say it helps me figure out like shading if I need it, as well as making it smoother. I could just like figure out where everything goes. So I'm like trying to get better back into how I used to draw when I was in college. I was almost down at drawing humans, at least essentially like the shapes of them without adding too much detail. Which I'm always good at detail, so I'm not worried about detail. Just trying to get back to drawing people in general. Uh, so I'm getting better, and I'm actually now at the phase where I'm drawing the muscle parts. Now that all I need to do is add the shirts and clothing, and then I can add more details. But for now, I'm uh, on the muscle parts, and I was doing some of the scenes, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I realized the characters I've drawn for the scenarios because it was going to be like a kick sequence. Like if you ever do like, from what I've seen in this fighter factory is what I'm using, which I don't know how to get anything into. I'll have to talk about that later. Is you do you do like images, different images, and you combine them in a sequence, and that makes the animation. Okay, so then I did that. So I made these different sequences, and then the next day I'm like, oh my god, I'm using my new technique. Wait, my new fighting style. But back when I was in college, I had a completely different fighting style. Completely. Like I've mastered and done so much more. I've actually finished so many different techniques I was working on back then that took everything just to do, and I could barely do, and now I can just do casually. Which some of them is like through my research and all that, which you'll definitely see, like pulsation, uh, so many different techniques like instant. Ah man, I won't really want to know what I'm gonna call it, but instant step or quick step. Yeah, quick step was one of my favorite ones. Quick step, which I just like I quickly move from one spot to the next really quickly, but it's limited a certain amount of range and distance. But I can now just continuously quick step. but it's very quick, like snap, and I'm moved. But it takes a lot of muscle, a lot of energy, and I just like quickly go. It takes a tab at a time, but like now I can just go 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 go. Which is kind of crazy, but at the same time, though, it's limited to how much energy I input to it and also how much muscle I use. But it's very versatile into it's back then I could only really do it like once here and there, and also it took a lot of prep time as well as I had to angle a little bit. Like I knew I had to angle just down a little bit more so that way I can make my step like more easier to do. But now I could just like I can even going backwards and I could just quickly just as long as I put my foot down I can go. Like as in like if I'm angled like this, if I can just move one leg to right here, then I can make all my muscles contract and just go. Of course, granted, I'm a lot stronger, a lot stronger compared to back then, and that's actually one of the problems was back then when I fought, I was completely, I was just so weak in general because I had a weak body, weak immune system. Even though I exercised every single day, practiced my martial arts every single day, and I did so many different things to get stronger, I'm still weak in many different fields and ways. Weak breathing, so I had to constantly practice. Like I had to constantly breathe. Granted, my most extreme way to get my muscles to the most extreme of how it is something I'm not going to quite reveal now, but later because quite frankly, I don't want people to do it because it can cause severe damage to your muscles if you do it wrong. And quite frankly, I knew how to do it because I researched all this. So even if I did mess up, I knew I could at least somewhat fix myself because I've been damaged before. Uh, when my muscles tried to contract because of I was getting physical, just developing physical handicapness, which was because of my weak body, uh, not necessarily the weak immune system, but a weak body and weak breathing because I had such a weak breath that there wasn't enough oxygen going through my body, so my muscles started to, since they were getting more and more muscles, because I was young and exercising a lot, eventually it was starting to it collapse on itself. There you go, collapse in on itself. Anyways, back when I was a teenager or in high school, well, not quite teenager, but close to adult, uh, I had a completely different fighting style, which I would never take hits. The only time I'd ever throw a punch out is if I knew for a fact I could hit them, unless I threw out fake punches to lure someone in to counter them, to basically throw a fake punch for them to, if they was gonna punch, which I'd never really do unless I knew the type of fighter they would. They was always looking for to strike and find an opening, so I'd always make openings for fake openings so that way I could strike, because I had so much skill with fighting, but I couldn't take really any hits, and I had to have my fighting style around not taking a single hit. So completely different style now. Now I'm just more so focused on the technique and power, more so not necessarily strength but power, because I can utilize more energy than ever. So it's trust me, when you see me in the game that I'm going to create, the way I would fight, the way I move, the way I do things is just so crazy. I open doors by putting my hand to it and blasting it open. Not moving my hand forward, not anything, just put my hand to it, insert energy out to open the door, and I just put my hand up to it, open it, and go continue walking. No matter what the door is, doesn't matter how heavy it is. I'll just insert the amount of energy needed to counter it and move it without actually moving my hand, which also allows in fighting to have actually practiced with just being able to move someone, because I was like, I wonder if this would work, because I've developed this for a very long time and I finally finished it in a sense that it's actually usable. Can this is just usable and workable on a person, and someone with a good balance, like is in like I made sure that they was in the proper balance of moving forward, so their balance wouldn't necessarily be affected unless I put the appropriate amount of external force in the opposite direction to at least counter that amount to stop their movement, to counter the movement, or to overpower the movement and move them back. And in the end, I was able to overpower them and slightly move them back, but not enough to throw them out of complete balance to fall, but enough to send them out of balance in general, which is good because if they were walking forward in a good balance, then if they were not in a good balance, then I could easily compromise their balance using using that strike. That's what I would use, anyways. That means I would be able to knock them to the ground quite easily through my fighting style, which back then I was all about. Which my fighting style actually I would say my fighting style back then was called mirror, because I'd use people's momentum and speed using their strikes. As when someone punched me, I could take their hand, I can like gate that energy, use it and utilize it into my spin and rotating, allowing me to get that momentum and speed, and then quickly put a little bit in my own and then strike them. Countering is like just like martial arts about countering, and I use that a lot. Being very versatile on evasiveness, using drunken style. I wouldn't necessarily use that much on striking unless I knew I could hit them, and also would be going after their vital points, like striking their you know, not like, you know, important areas, which are several different areas. And if need be, if they're really large, you know, either heavier set or physically like heavier set, like is more muscle, I would always utilize hitting around the same spot to eventually knock them down through just sheer pain. So I had many different ways of and knowledge of taking down people, but I knew if I took a hit, I was out. And that's gonna be a very important thing to my character is he cannot take a hit. Like as in a few hits and he's gone out of the like he's down. So in other people's cases, like they can take far more hits, but they're not necessarily more powerful or that. Because I'd be the weakest character on punches. My kicks would be the strongest kicks, but rivaled by the strongest puncher, which has also decent kicks though. My probably in the game is anyways, but still that was a funny thing. I actually need to get on to the main thing. Is this is a recap. So I created a bunch of characters, 3D characters, and all that. So now I'm at the recap part. Create a bunch of characters, and I got it down to making a 3D model. I'm like, okay, let me see if I can make this 3D model and put it into the game, Fighter Factory. Couldn't do it. Okay, fine. I'll just save the file and save it into many different types of files to see if it's a certain type of file. We're going to save it back into 3D Paint, a regular Paint, and mess with it. Maybe it's the sizing and all that. Couldn't figure out anything to do with it. So then I took my original drawing, which was actually on 3D Paint, and I thought, well, let's see if I can just take rather the size I did, the normal one, try to put it in there. Nope. Or, you know, it's just, maybe it's the size of it, so I just you know, moved it down to be a lot smaller, made everything a lot smaller. It didn't work. So I'm like, am I doing something wrong here? I need to go do something else. So I can't use anything that costs anything. Because the first couple games are going to be free. And so I'll start, knowing I'm going to start getting money out of this, then I will. So I need to be able to find a way to do this all free. And it's just like, I'm not gonna win here. So, but the last time I was gonna make a video, I was gonna talk about my 3D model and all that. But like, well, first let me make sure I can actually use this because I was showing off my what I made, which is actually pretty good. And I was like, okay, this looks really good. I'm gonna just show off this is what I've made for the week, and let's you know. And then I made the video, and then like, oh, but then at the end it was also talking about how I can't wait to use it, but I first need to make sure I can use it. I found out I can't use it at all. There's like I can't use anything at all in general. So I don't know if it's either the computer, the file itself for Fighter Factory. Maybe I need to update something, get maybe a more updated version or something. I don't know. I have no clue what's wrong, but I can't make anything yet. I can create, I can draw by hand, and I can draw in the computer, but I don't know what I can use and what I need to use. So I just might as well just continue practicing drawing until I get to the point where I can actually draw people perfectly, or not necessarily perfectly, but you know, good, at least good. So I'm just gonna hold off and get some stuff figured out, and then I'll be able to actually create something. Because very close, definitely far, like, very close to just starting making models and just like going with it. But that didn't work, so I'm just gonna have to just run through the scenarios and run through what I got. But for now, in my free time, I'm just gonna continue drawing it better. But that's what I'm working on. Just so let's keep y'all updated. Also, the next video hopefully will be in between if I find time, which hopefully I'll be able to find time. So I'm gonna be talking about my game functions that I have to have in the games if I'm gonna make it. And quite frankly, my character might have to be one of the only few characters that use something different to create big damage. Which also then would make him the most broken character because he's already going to be using something broken in a sense, but at the same time though, what's broken if the character only can take like 1 or 2 hits compared to all the other characters who can take 20 hits, like a good couple combos, like maybe 20 hits. So it's like, there's a big difference. So like either 3 hits and my character's gone versus another character that can take 20 hits, but my character's far more versatile. It's something like that, you know. But we're gonna work. I'm gonna talk about the functions I have to have at least in the game if I'm going to make the game. So I have to, if I do find something that is gonna work, I have to make sure that I can at least mess with the functions of what the characters can do. I don't know if Fighter Factory can do that or not. So it's like I have to work here and there to see what I can do. So that was my video. Thank you all for watching, and hopefully I'll make another video in between this week and next week. And I'll see y'all later. And goodbye.